Hey John, it was great meeting you the other day. Thanks for taking me in your house. You got some really great ideas, and I'm looking forward to having this as a comp for myself as well. So here's my analysis. I'm going to walk you through all the numbers. I'm not going to do the math in front of you. Just, you can double check it if you want to, but should be good. Thanks, man. Okay, I've pulled back over a year on these comparable sales. Now that makes them, from an appraiser's point of view, not comparable. One reason I did that is because I wanted to solidify a couple things in my mind, and that's that even though our 6-month comps is what the appraisers use, and sometimes they're as picky as to want 3-month comps, a couple of them were like 115, 109, 110, things like that. So I just wanted to take a deeper look for the sake of the consumer view of this house and what would be a fair price. So I took out some of the smallest houses, but if we look through here, I'm going to scroll over. Any of these right here would be considered comparables with some adjustments for what they call it inversion. In other words, a bigger house sells for less per square foot. So that we go all the way from 1,700 to square foot to 2,200. I've organized them by price per square foot. But if you're going through here, you see you've got 120, 86, 76, 124. This one is old. I mean, too old to be in an appraisal. That's a really good one for us. And also, I know the house wasn't knock your socks off amazing. I think your house is going to be better, but it is on a better road. $90 a square foot, 111 a square foot. This one was pretty sharp, but could have used a few more things. 97 a square foot and 122 a square foot and 116 a square foot. Going back to 2606, some of this right here was the square footage came from an outbuilding. So that's actually better than it looks. I mean, if you just counted the inside, and the garage was amazing. I mean, it was probably a $50,000 build, probably brought about $20,000 to $30,000 to the value of the property. So that price per square foot would actually be a little higher if we separated that out. Now, I did not go outside of Bluefields. Well, I did, but not in this presentation, simply because there's not one comp outside of Bluefields that helps us. And in reality, the appraiser is going to be required to provide at least one comp outside of Bluefields. So just one of the appraisal problems we're going to have, I can tell you already, that the appraisal is what we're not going to market to the appraisers, but in terms of our value, we're going to go for the consumer valuation of it. But it's just another point of negotiation. Now you'd have to negotiate price, you have to negotiate repairs, and then you have to negotiate with your seller, your buyer, if the appraisal doesn't come back right. Okay, so here is my actual market analysis. If I was getting ready to list this house tomorrow, I'm assuming a lot about this, and I'll take you through a couple of those things. First, I'm assuming 2,000 square feet. We don't know exactly what the square footage is when we add the garage. I'm assuming 750 square feet for the basement, whatever it was you had told me, at a 30% value. And that we're going to have an average market response, meaning the road's not going to affect it too much, that there's nothing about that being right on Lebanon Pike or something like that that's going to really become a big deal. So let's go through the hard numbers. Basically what I did is I took a price per square foot between 110 and 120. Now I know you saw several 120s and even above. And the reason I'm doing this reality part of it is I want to prepare you for the way that appraisers and some people in the market, some smart people in the market, are going to look at your house. Basically, even if you could get, say, 120 a square foot, the appraiser is still going to pull in some other comps. Now, we saw several 120s, but when I did my 6-month search, we only had 2 right around 120. That means they're going to pull in a third one, and that's going to bring it down. If they go outside the neighborhood, even our best comps in Lincoln Hills, Southern Hills, Craig Mead, well, we don't have one in Craig Mead right now, but are going to bring you down significantly. So I just had one come back this week where I had two over 100 and one at 80, and it really hurt us really bad. So I'm assuming with this first part of the analysis that the appraiser is going to come up with about 115 a foot. So with these hard numbers, the appraiser is basically going to come up with about $230,000 for the upstairs of the house. And then we'll move to adding the downstairs to the equation. If we can get 30% of the value, that would bring us to, I wrote that wrong. I wrote it right at this bottom part, but 240. And that's just cold hard numbers. So that's kind of what I really like to spend the majority of my time with on clients, is to recognize, hey, this is what we're up against. Even though Bluefields is hot, even though it's in demand, even though this house is going to sell for the best condition that a Bluefields house has sold in probably 3 years. That's the data that the appraisers are going to look at. That's what some smart consumers are going to look at. And then we already have kind of put ourselves in just a slower market in Donaldson because of the higher price. Now, so I'm really not as negative as I sound. This is my favorite part. This is what we call fantasy land. And these are all the things that you and I both know intuitively. One is that inventory is very sparse, which means supply is low, demand is high, the price goes up. This house has been sought after for many years for its kind of artsy qualities. And ironically, the folks who have sought after it have not had the stomach to follow through and do what it takes to get this house when it was in pre-foreclosure. But I had offered to help a few folks get into this house, but it was basically more than outgo than they could afford, or more of a project than they were willing to take on. It'll also be in better condition than any of our appraisals, our comparables, and that a liberal appraiser will make adjustments for those. So that if, say, your house comped out at 115, if you actually looked at the appraisal, I'm not sure if you're familiar with reading appraisals, he has columns where he makes adjustments for certain things. In other words, he says, well, that one was 115 a square foot, but look at the kitchen in this one, that ought to add at least 10 grand, or that ought to add 15 grand. And those don't go into his price per square foot analysis. That just comes in as a kicker to the subject property. And then the fourth thing I put is, I just think it's going to break any Bluefields record because of the timing. The houses that I have been selling have been, I hate to say it, but just older folks who have died or moved out to nursing homes, and in doing so, a lot of them cared for their homes but never made the updates, and we're able to get 110 a square foot on those. So it could be that a good appraiser, or a high loan or low loan to value ratio, meaning the person is putting 40% down, 50% down, the appraisal will just kind of look the other way. And then, of course, there's always the option of paying more than it appraises for, which some people are willing to do. Ironically, I haven't seen it much lately, even though things are really having trouble appraising out. So, going to the market. When we go to the market, I just want to say I price a little bullishly in Donaldson, partly because I understand the values of specific neighborhoods, and partly just because I believe that the young folks who are coming in are working with the same set of lenses that I'm working with, which is we're on the cusp of being a really hot neighborhood in Donaldson. Of course, if your realtor doesn't believe you can get it, then you're probably not going to get it. So the reason I'm bullish is I'll go ahead and ground you in reality, like I did with the first part of this presentation, and then I'm real transparent with you about how comparables, the appraisals, and then a Bayard version can affect the sale. So a Bayard version would be like, oh, that hill on the back of it just means I will not buy that house, or this road just means I will not buy that house. So everything can sell tomorrow at the right price, and someone will overlook that, but there's some people we cannot convince. Of course, we only need one. So if we were to go to market, my suggested market price would be $269. That'd be 130 foot with 10K added for the basement. So we have gotten up to 140 a foot on really small houses. Never had anything at 2,000 square feet even come close. So well, we have, but it was 6 or 7 years ago. So that'll give you kind of my thought and how much money you have to spend to still make money. and then I will shoot you some other stuff on designs and ideas that I had that are all just aesthetic. So hope that helps. Look forward to talking with you soon.